Troy and Abed in the morning. Sorry, I've been rewatching that, and this just had a real Troy and Abed vibe.
Today we're going to be talking about Tithe by Holly Black, which is a personal favorite of Gina and I, and as well as Maria. However, Gina and I read it at quite the young age.
So this is the first book in what shall be our yet unnamed, we don't have the exact name of the series yet, but I like it.
Flashback.
Or Nostalgia Reads.
Blast to the Past with Brendan Fraser. There we go. That's what we're gonna name it. Blast to the Past.
The idea is that we are revisiting books that for either all of us or one or two of us had a foundational importance to us that we want to analyze, and we want other people to analyze with us to see, does it hold up? Is it as good? Are there things that we've changed our opinions on? And so for me, I read this when I was 20, and this does not have a foundational
versus
nostalgic.
Gina and I actually, the first week of honors introduction at our college, Gina had met my roommate, and we were standing in the bookstore waiting in line to get our books. Actually, technically, we're waiting for my roommate to get her books. Not that Sam would ever watch this, but Sam, this is my dedication to you. I don't even know how we got started on this, but we started talking about Tithe. You were surprised that I had read it, and I was like, yeah, I read it. And then we talked about it later.
How old were both of you when you read this?
18. Oh, no, sorry. When we read it, I thought 18. When we met.
No.
Sorry. I read it when I was in 6th grade. So however old you are in 6th grade, which I'm pretty sure is
12, 13?
No, younger. 13's going into high school.
15 is going into...
Nope, 13.
14 is going into high school.
13.
I think I was 13 or 14.
Did I read it a little earlier?
Well, you read it actually a fair bit earlier, because keep in mind, I started with Valiant, not Tithe.
Oh yeah, that's right. No, Valiant hadn't come out yet. I very, very impatiently waited. And in the last book, I was so dedicated to it that on a field trip to Busch Gardens for our 8th grade trip, at the end of middle school, I read it on the way up there and actually found a bench to sit on at Busch Gardens and read it, and my teacher called me a nerd.
Foundational experiences for Katie.
My friends got very angry at me, actually, and held it against me for a while that I was not participating. But anyway, back to the main point. Holly Black is an author much like Neil Gaiman. In fact, they're friends. I shouldn't say friends. Acquaintances is more along the lines of what they were. They have often written anthologies with one another and other artists, such as in Doctor Who anthologies, and some other horror ones, some other fairy tale ones, some other pop culture ones.
You also ran past the point of me asking how old you guys were when you read it, which is, how did this book impact you when you read it as young babies? The purpose of Nostalgia Reads.
Okay, fine. Gina, let's go back in time. You start first.
Oh, thank you.
And you can
You're
start with
welcome.
Valiant, and then how you read Tithe after Valiant. That works too.
So, Valiant is an entirely different book.
Entirely.
It's the second book, but entirely different.
It's entirely different, and honestly, I love it. I love Valiant so much. Tithe?
It is objectively better.
It is objectively better.
Tithe is really good. Valiant is amazing. I mean, okay, so little, not sure where you are in the world. I don't know. I like the darker things, but I don't really know. I just wear a lot of necklaces, blah, blah, blah. That version of Gina, who had no idea what she was doing with life, finds a book about goth fairy tale badasses who go around, pranking fairies, which is basically what Valiant is. Living in, homeless, living in a, it's just is everything that a questioning little preteen basically ever wants in life. And it really just has stuck with me because the thing I remember most about Valiant, the thing that caught my attention, because I read the first chapter in the bookstore before I brought it home or anything like that. And basically in the first chapter, this main girl who has a really awesome just overall aesthetic description comes home to seeing her mother sleeping with her boyfriend and decides that she's just gonna leave. And I'm
Holly Black, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, broken homes.
The first chapter of this book, and I need to see what the actual quote is, because the first chapter of this book, I did not remember that it was this emo dramatic.
Are you gonna read literally one of my favorite quotes of all time?
Well, it's not bad. It's good. It just was like surprising because I did not remember.
Gina and I are both going to use this term, and I don't mean it in a bad way. The other characters in the novel respond in a way that makes you know that Holly Black knows what she's doing when she says this, but it's a specific tone.
I'm only going to read the parts that Kay says. I'm not going to read the responses.
Kay is our main character.
Yes.
You know what the sun looks like? Like he slit his wrists in a bathtub in the water, and there is blood all over the water. And the moon is just watching. She's just watching him die. Probably drove him to it. Like, even as an adult, I love that. It's just, like, weird coming from a 16-year-old. Well, I guess it's not really that weird coming from a 16-year-old. But I did not remember this book being that edgy when I was reading it, which means...
Oh my god, so edgy.
Reading it as a teenager is an entirely different experience because, like, when you're reading the stuff as a teenager, it's like, yep, this is normal. This is what I feel. This is just
this is how my mind works.
It's a great series that is designed for teenagers to help them cope with really complicated and hard conversations. You don't find often that a young adult novel handles difficult things like abusive anything in a way that isn't problematic. And this one is like, yeah, we're dealing with problematic topics, but we're doing it in a way that will actually make people like kind of have an idea of like what these are really like and how to cope with them, and like here's healthy ways to cope with them, and running away to the subway is probably going to get all your friends killed, so you know, options.
Katie, baby Katie reads this book.
Wait, this is actually the second book I ever read that left an impact on me, other than Heidi.
Mine was The Dream of the Stone. I actually was like thinking last night that I need to go reread that.
You want to reread that quote real quick? It's because I've reread it so many times. Like I have like, okay, you know what the sun looks like? Kay asked. There was only a little more than a slice of red where the sea met the sky. Now what? Janet said, holding up the lip gloss out to Kay. Like he slit his wrists in a bathtub and the blood is just all over the water. That's gross, Kay. And the moon is just watching. She's just watching him die. She must have driven him to it. I can't even like deliver it the right way that I hear it in my
The audiobook narrator delivers it perfectly. She makes it better. When she says it, you're like, this isn't an emo 16-year-old. It almost sounds more thoughtful. And again, I'm not saying emo 16-year-old in a like.
I take offense to that.
No, I'm not saying
it's not bad.
What Gina was saying is absolutely valid, and that like, but like the audiobook narrator is absolutely fantastic for this book. I'd highly recommend. She does great Fae voices.
I love how she reads things. She's like reads things that like have a like end of like she was yawning. She reads as she's yawning. I love it so much.
She's awesome.
Okay, here.
Yeah.
May I go back? You know what? One thing I really would like to point out is this book really focuses on the degradation of like humanity, but specifically from a white trash perspective. It is 100% everyone's white trash. That's a derogatory term, but very poor white people. I think I've modeled all of my writing off of this writing style along with Neil Gaiman's. It is poetic, and Maria discussed earlier with me while we were going to grab donuts. It edges on purple prose, or it just nearly avoids it. And
in a good way, in like the best way.
Okay, then that's fine. I would argue I see why you say the purple prose, but I
didn't say it's purple prose.
No. I know. I'm just saying the purple prose in general as a concept, like not as in you are accusing it purely of being purple prose. The descriptions in this are so creative and produce such an image that there is a dichotomy happening in this book. And when I was younger, it really helped me make peace with the grimy parts of my childhood. And yeah, but specifically the abuse, because there's a lot of passive aggressive or passive abuse happening in this story. And it mixes the idea of how the Fae have been pushed to the very edges of where humanity isn't, and how pollution and stuff, which really hit home for me when I was a kid because I thought I was going to be Captain Planet and save the world, or be Lara Croft Tomb Raider and go excavate stuff in Egypt. Neither of which happened. And the idea of the Fae being pushed into the garbage-strewn little creeks and stuff that are barely there, also compared to the grimy nature that Kay comes from with her mother, who is a wannabe band person, a singer and a musician.
She is a band person. She's a wannabe rock star.
Yes, there we go. She is a band person.
She still is the band person. person.
Yes, 100%.
She's a musician.
Yes. And she plays guitar and she
Dance
sings.
person.
And it's kind of like grungy girl music from the 90s.
Yeah.
Or early 2000s. And her mom is both cool and neglectful. Her mom loves
what a
her,
combo.
but super neglectful, which is like my mother, who has passed away, so she will never see this. And I really vibed with that. It's not depressing, though. It is depressing when you picture the stuff, but when the narration is happening, Kay is so used to the grossness around her that she doesn't even, like, feel grossed out or uncomfortable, at least until she turns into a fairy, then she could smell everything, and it's really awful smelling.
I'll also argue that the way that Black narrates and writes this stuff specifically makes it a little bit beautiful, and that's one of the comments I'm going to be saying as far as my read through this time versus the first time I read it. But so like that completely unsurprising, because it is like, this is a grungy, gross setting and you don't feel it. And it's because of how she narrates, and it connects back to that like indulgent, beautiful.
Well,
like,
there's beauty in the broken. There's a really perfect metaphor or representation for the whole book, actually, like 3 chapters in, where Kay is attracted. Well, they're in this broken down warehouse, and it's supposed to be a little hangout between, you know, young people drinking when they're not supposed to, and it makes me sound like a prude. Jeez. Anyway, so they're drinking and smoking and stuff, and she's not really part of this crowd because she just moved recently. We'll get into it when we go into the plot, but
there's a horse.
There used to be a carousel in there, and there's a broken horse, and she finds it beautiful and brings beauty to it. And so finding the beautiful in the broken is a really, really common theme in this book.
Which is why it perfectly encapsulates gothic small children who don't realize they're goth yet. That's exactly what fundamental goth is like finding beauty in death and brokenness and like all the negative, and it's like this book celebrates it. It's like, yes, it is. You're normal. Well, you're relatively
This is a great intro book. Like, all little baby goths or like punk kids should be given this book as their starter pack. Like here's your trip pants from Hot Topic, and here's
that's correct.
Here's Tithe.
It's an era.
In comparison, so you have these little like trauma baby using this book to digest and understand the not great things in her life. Baby goth Gina using this as a understanding her aesthetic, but exploring like all of that stuff. And then you had me. I read this when I was 20. And so, and like by this point I was like pretty firmly like pink's my favorite color, like yellow. I did not have a traumatic childhood. I was not a little goth baby. I was really into YA romances. And I read this book and I really enjoyed it, but I did not like the romance, which is why I like Valiant, the second book, better, because it has
way better romance. Much better romance.
Way better romance. But I still really enjoyed the book, but it was nothing that like blew me away. Like, I reread Valiant once or twice, where like I think I only reread this book once. So rereading it this time was really interesting to revisit this book and look at it, because like I haven't reread it a lot since I was like in early 20s. So it's been at least like 8 years since I've touched this book. So it was really great for me to come back and from this point of view, as someone who reviews books now, look at it and form some thoughts on it. But for me, and you guys can talk about how this book landed for you guys now, what blew me away was Black has this really fantastic way of making the mundane, the ordinary, and also the ugly incredibly beautiful. It's got this like, in Gothic, not in like goth style, but Gothic as in like Gothic literature. The philosophy. It's very much a Gothic book, a modern Gothic fairy tale, and it really is fantastic. There's a place that is literally just like mud with broken glass bottles in it, and she calls it the
Glass Swamp.
The Glass Swamp, which is such a gorgeous name, and the description, and again, it's mud with glass bottles in it, but the description is beautiful and everything like that. There's a description very early on in the book where she's walking like by the pier, and it like smells and it's gross, but it's described so beautifully. And like, so you have that aspect, but then you have like the fairies, and there's this weird, like, Kay goes through this process of like slightly dehumanizing but also valuing the humanity and like humans around her over the course of the book. And then like it's also a slight normalizing of the fae, and then also a rediscovery of the fae as incredibly fae, because Kay's interaction with them changes what she thinks they are versus what she ends up thinking, especially over her childhood friend phase, changes. And so it's really good. I still don't love the romance.
Allow me, please, to paint a picture real quick. So our main character is Kay Furch, I've always said, but I don't know how exactly it's probably pronounced. Kay is an appearingly Asian young lady with blonde hair, which always seems to attract men to her. Beyond the fact that she's Fae and probably like, you know, her, which comes up a lot. People are like a little like afraid, or like they push her away, but they, yeah, exactly, off-put. She's kind of raggedy. Like she's got a lot of hand-me-downs and stuff. Royben is a tall, lithe, beautiful fae with long pewter hair that goes all the way down his back, with pale skin and sharp features.
None of this was Maria's type as a young girl.
Oh, it was mine.
He reads as a typical anime hero / villain.
He does.
Because like both of them look the same for a lot of animes. Like that's what he reads, like just like,
or like Jareth.
Oh my god, yeah.
Comic book versions of Jareth.
Comic book versions of Jareth that are more glam, like more not like glam as in like the schools, but like more just like
more monochrome goth.
Yes.
Rather
it's
than beautiful. It's such a good aesthetic.
It is. We've got those people.
Welcome to the plot. Here there be spoilers.
Welcome. Please enjoy thine selves. So we start off, and I won't go into too much.
If I rush you, it's not because of it.
No, I'm well aware. Yeah. Thank you. Please do.
I will.
I'm not going to try to get stuck
I'm
on
the will
details.
today.
Oh, thanks. Meryl, Mill.
You can call me Wilma.
How long ago did you think of that?
Right now.
Okay.
She was trying to say Will and Maria, and I was like, what's the feminine version? Oh, Wilma.
So we start off in a bar, which already sets, it's like a grimy bar. Kay's there. We know Kay has honestly been the more mature parent in the pair. And she's been fishing she says it a couple of times. She's fished her mother's head out of toilets from vomiting. They move from place to place, so much so that she hasn't been able to go to school, even though she liked school. She's had to get a job at a Chinese restaurant in order to help pay for the bills.
Chow Fats.
Yes, Chow Fats. In the midst of this, the boyfriend of her mother, who's not a nice guy,
he's also in their band. He's like the guitarist or something.
Yeah, actually, before I get to this part, there's one little key detail that I feel like really describes the relationship between her and her mother, which is her mother is coming back from the stage because they're done with their set, and Kay puts a cigarette butt in her beer, and she's like, I wonder if Ellen's, which is her mother's name, I wonder if Ellen's drunk. Well, let's see if she's drunk enough to swallow the bud whole. And she drinks it and then she sputters and Kay laughs. So she's like this kind of like tricksy kind of character, but she loves her mother. Anyway, so the boyfriend is actually charmed, as we later get to know, by a character, and he attacks Kay's mother, which makes them have to move back to her grandmother's house, which is in New Jersey.
They move back in with their grandmother. Kay is really excited to do this. She really loves her grandmother's house. She loves this neighborhood. She has very fond memories. As a young girl, she had 3 Fae friends, Gristle, Spike, and
Ludi Lou.
Like, literally, her mom like will talk, and other people around her will constantly be like, do you remember when you had those imaginary fairy friends? That was weird. Or like someone will be like, are you the girl who had the like imaginary friends
or believes in fairies,
that believes in fairies? And so it's something that's followed her, and she has a friend that she's kept up with named Janet. They've emailed back and forth for years. They go back to her grandma's house. Her room upstairs is still like childlike. It's old, moth worn. The like everything is like a little thin and see-through kind of vibes. Grungy.
Oh, it's all the white furniture that's too small and the
exactly.
Pink comfort. It's literally
it's her childhood room.
Yeah, she
Nothing
even pulls the mattress down and puts it on the floor at some point, and she has 2 pet rats, and I feel like that really says a lot about her personality, honestly.
Yeah.
But also
she stole.
Oh,
she
well, you know, she didn't. Oh, yes.
Yeah, she shoplifted.
Yes. You know what's really sweet in a way? Her grandmother, first of all, is so grandma-y. She worries about her, wants her to get in school, have a better life. But she kept the room exactly as it was
for childhood Kay. And so that, like, and it's interesting because the relationship between these 3 women is fascinating. It's not super explored. I actually, if I wrote this book, I would have explored that dynamic much more, because I think you get Kay going from human to fae mainly through her interaction with this one boy that we'll see. But I would have much preferred it if in this book it would have been like fuck Kenny, I don't care about Kenny, if it had been explored with her mom and her grandmother.
Kenny's Janet's boyfriend who attempted to vaguely assault her.
She goes there. She contacts her old friend Janet. Janet's like, let's go out. I was going to go out to a party tonight. Meet me up at this place. So her and Janet meet up. Janet's getting ready for the thing. There's that beautiful scene where they're like on the pier. It's like grungy, wet. And that's where she says the line about like, oh, the sun has slit his wrist.
One of my favorite. I put it on my Facebook page for the longest time.
It's a good line.
It's a great line.
It's just very, very much
specific.
So. It very much so perfectly encapsulates the tone of the book. I'm not saying it's not good. I love it.
But
it's a very specific type of quote.
They go to the party, and at the party, this is like before they get to the party, they meet up at this warehouse, and it's where this carousel horse is. And Kay is immediately like, everybody's offering her drinks. She doesn't. It's been years since she's seen these people. Like the boys are grown.
She smokes. She drags a cigarette off them and grabs some bourbon.
And she sees the carousel horse. She's absolutely enchanted with it. And while she's sitting on it, and Kay has this thing where if she like really imagines something, things can tend to happen. So she's sitting on this carousel horse and she imagines it getting up and walking, and she thinks this is all happening in her head. But Kenny had followed her and he sees it move as well. And not only does he see it move, but from this point on, he is enchanted by Kay. And I don't mean just like, he like her. No, he is magically enchanted.
He is forcefully to the point where he's like, I don't want to think about you anymore. Make it stop.
So after like, when she realizes he's there, she stops what she was doing. He's like, how the fuck did you do that? And he comes up to her and he like starts trailing his hand up her thigh, and she's like, I really should stop him. This is kind of weird. But she doesn't. And a huge thing you're going to discover about Kay is her understanding what she actually wants versus her like Fae side and like the boundaries her Fae side pushes. That happens. Some people walk in. Kay like freaks out because his hand was on her thigh, and she leaves.
So as Kay is walking back, there's this really cool, all the scenes are really painted in front of you, but it like talks about how it smells like asphalt, it's night, it's raining out, and it's like muggy, and she's kicking a soda can that's been crushed, and she ends up hearing a noise, so she is curious and she goes into the like woodsy gross area that's right off the highway, and she ends up meeting Reuben for the first time, who has been impaled by a wood like a branch arrow with an iron
goth elf.
Yes. And he doesn't trust her at first, obviously. He thinks that she's part of a ploy to kill him. It's because they attacked him, the solitary Fae, also known as like
the non-court Fae.
Yes, exactly. The non-pretty Fae.
The lesser Fae.
Yes.
Lesser Fae I'll agree with. I don't think that they're necessarily not like less pretty.
No, I know, but like,
there's the court Fae and lesser Fae.
You've got the celebrity Fae, and then you've got the
there you go.
Fae.
There you go.
So she ends up helping him, and there's this really key scene that comes up for help later in the plot where he says, fine, if you want to help me, they take out the branch from him. She takes a leaf, which I really like these little, what are they called? Rituals that they kind of have to perform in order to, summon certain things or do certain things. And she has his blood on a leaf, and she summons a kelpie.
Because he can't move. He's been shot. He can't get himself to move, so he needs to move.
And so she summons a kelpie who comes, picks him up, and he's like, I owe you one, and off they flutter. Not really.
And what he owes her, what he tells her he'll give her as payment, is 3 questions. Any 3 questions she wants, he will answer. The Kelpie's really cool, and the Kelpies in mythology are these creatures that will drown you if you get too close to their waters, and they're often described as like water horses. And so this one literally is this black, dripping, fantastic water horse who agrees to like go help Reuben, and then she has to go home, and she's like, what a fucking, like, that was hot. And, like, thus starts the period of her being like, man, that Reuben guy was the best man I've ever seen in my life. And, congratulations. She done not maybe in love, but she done infatuated.
She's also like really partial to the fact that he's like different from teenage boys. Obviously.
He uses the word verily.
Yes. So there we go.
And later, this is such a college guy and high school girl. He has Paradise Lost in his, like, it is,
Will,
I was
Yeats Yeats and stuff.
Yates, not Yeats. That's what you were saying earlier. Oh my god, I thought you were saying Yeats as in yeeting.
I want you to know my professors called him Yeats.
It's Yates.
It's Yates.
Well, I want you to know that's how I learned it from my professors.
Oh, that's fine.
No, but she said it earlier. She literally went, and he has yeets, and I thought she was saying like he has moments where he eats things, like eating.
Yeet!
And I was like, it was Yates. Okay, anyway.
When I was younger and I read this in 6th grade, I didn't love the romance, but I loved the characters. The romance was really fun because it was an ideal romance, because I liked the really pretty much goth looking male lead, which is Roybin. And I hated his name. The romance in Valiant is much stellar in comparison. But upon reading it now as an adult, it actually seems like, I don't know that like Holly Black actually intended this to happen, but it seems like a very so let me say it this way. The Fae are very cruel and violent, and he comes from and that's the Unseelie court, and then which is just pretty much like the really violent court. And then we've got, well, they're both violent, the gritty one. And then we've got the Seelie court, which is all apple orchards, beautiful music, musicians, but still cruel and awful in smaller ways. Roybin is supposed to stand out as a different type of Fae, he got morality and stuff like that. But it's actually, in a weird way, he, over-romanticizes certain things, which comes up a lot, with Little Clues, which I liked. But I almost don't see him as actually being in love with Kay. I think he's just imagining her as, a certain idea. And, not that, I mean, this is just the way I'm reading it now, which I prefer. I'd prefer to think of this way.
I mean, absolutely, this is not how it reads.
I don't know, it read that way for me this time. There's a couple of little details that kind of indicate that
you could extrapolate from those details
and that's what I'm doing.
But again, it's one of those things where if you're having to put that work in and extrapolate and connect these dots,
it would have been more connected and more obvious.
You saying that makes a lot more sense, because, this romance feels very much so like a...
unhealthy?
Not even that. The thing is, these two characters don't read as bipolar. But I don't know if you guys ever saw, it was Touched with Fire movie about bipolar.
Yeah.
It feels like that, where you bring two people together for an hour or something. They become so obsessed with each other that that is just their world. And they don't really love each other.
No.
It's just that they have that instant connection that is just it can't be resisted. Every time they meet, it's just they have to do everything they can to keep each other safe and keep this and be all this emotions. But it's not exactly a formal, they're in a relationship.
Yeah, based off trust or experience and stuff.
Yeah.
And one thing that we can point out is that Roybin has been through, he has been essentially enslaved.
He's a trauma baby.
Oh my, that's an understatement. Besides the fact that he's Fae, and all the Fae are pretty, fucked up, he has been pretty much tortured and forced to murder. And by doing that, of course, that's fractured what his once personality was, which was I am a knight of the shining, gleaming armor. And he's no longer that, so he doesn't really know who he is. Come in Kay. Kay's 16. She can't drive. She hasn't been going to school. She's clever, but she's not intelligent per se, although she comes across that way. But if you think about the logistics of it, so it kind of makes sense that they'd have a really immature romance.
For me, it was more that so what Gina described, that instant connection and to the point where it's not really romance, but you're kind of obsessed with the other person. Had Holly Black made it where it was if Kay had been human and was enchanted, by just looking upon Robin, was enchanted by him and thus couldn't get him out of her head, Roger. But she ain't. Spoiler alert, in case you didn't know.
But she's also kind of ooh, gentry Fae. I've never seen one of those before.
Yeah.
You're really hot.
She's never seen in one of...
and again, that's all fine. And because I just read this book called Keeper, which is kind of boring, but had a really good example of what a 16-year-old having a crush looks like. She thinks about the guy, but there's also a ton of other shit going on in her life, so he doesn't come up a lot. And when she sees him, it's cute. But anyway, and so like if there had been a reason, like some other connection thing that made this, because like Gina said, it's like they're two bipolar people who have like formed this not necessarily unhealthy, but like obsessive connection with each other. Like that's not it. And there's no real like, and also I don't think they have chemistry.
No, they don't.
I'll say it.
They haven't established
I don't get why they like each other. I get why he appreciates her for being nice to him, because not a lot of people are nice to him, and she helped him out of the goodness of her. But he also like relieved himself of that by offering her through question. So like
this whole thing could have been done exact same plot points, exact same everything, but just because like he owed her a debt for saving his life or something. It could have been done without the romance element, and it would still be the exact same book.
Yes. I love the idea of this old fae, like this guy who's been alive forever, like becoming friendly with this young girl, and maybe like when she's 30, like something happens, but like and they just have this like I like their dynamic and some of that, because there's a problem I'm going to talk about. Royben in the first half and Royben in the second half
are two people,
not the same character. He's real extra expressy depressy in the first half,
and then when he comes to the diner, the guy is like, "Who's the goth kid?" Like,
and then in the second half, he's cracking jokes and smirking.
Yes, like, let me just give you a picture real quick, okay?
Well, Kay changed him to be a more happy person
immediately. Yeah, that's how he's been alive for fucking long.
That's how instant obsession sometimes works, though. It's like you actually brain chemistry, you're in a better mood and you handle things
He ain't
better.
Human.
It doesn't matter.
They probably have brain chemistry for Faye, too.
I know, but he's like literally a bajillion. Like, again, it's just too fast.
We don't know how old he is. It didn't say.
He's been alive at least a while.
At least 100 years.
At least, yes.
We also don't know how long ago they did the exchange between the knights. So, could have only been 7 years ago. Like, we don't know.
7 years is enough time to be a trauma baby. That takes a little bit longer to... But so she goes home. She wakes up the next morning. Her friend Janet's like, "What happened last night? What happened?"
I actually want to explain, because it's so important, and it was so poignant to our discussion earlier, is the setting. Janet lives behind a gas station where her brother Corny lives, or Corny does not live at the gas station. He works there. And we do get Corny's perspective every now and again. Not many times. We don't really switch perspectives. But anyway, he's working there. She hasn't really met him quite yet, particularly so. Knows about him, but that's about it. And so she goes behind there to a trailer park. And she even points out that there's rust on the screen door, and inside it smells musty, and there's Star Trek.
Assume from this point forward, everything is grungy.
Well, no, specifically, there's Star Trek signed Star Trek things everywhere, and it's all around. And anyway, she goes there with Janet. Speaks with Janet, and then she gets a little message thrown at her, right? Or is that later?
Yes, no, it's here. So she's sitting, she's holding like a Star Wars pillow, and Janet's there getting ready for something.
Just one interruption. It was a Star Trek pillow. I'm pretty sure
it was. I didn't want to interrupt for that.
Yeah. It's an important detail.
Janet's mom collects Star Wars memorabilia. Congratulations. Star Trek, sorry. It does not impact the plot. At all.
It does. It's a very important detail.
Very briefly.
Will, you can cut out every instance of us saying Star Trek, and it would not...
over this. This is important.
Well, no, I'm telling you,
the
Will cut this.
The book is more than just the plot points,
Will shouldn't cut this.
He has to. We're 46 minutes in, and we're not even at the halfway point. Ladies.
Okay.
I'm telling you, certain shit gotta get cut. Star Trek is probably going to get...
No, it shouldn't be!
So they have this conversation while she's talking with them. A little acorn comes in. She looks at the acorn, and it's like inside. The windows are closed. She's like, the fuck, this acorn appeared out of nowhere. And it's got a little note, and it says, meet us in the glass swamp. Love LL, which is Ludi Lou, one of her old favorite. And she was like, oh shit, because she's been calling for them, leaving milk out. She's been like, where my fae friends at? And she's like, she now knows, like, she was for a while, she was like, did I really just kind of make, I couldn't have made them up. And then she saw Royben, and she was like, no, they definitely are here somewhere. So she goes to meet up with them, and it's Spike and Ludi Lou, and they basically...
And Spike's a dick.
Spike is,
I've always hated Spike.
Oh, no, he's problematic. Like,
yeah, no, he does so much shit stuff. And he's, you know what really kills me is that Spike, Ludi Lou, and Gristle were all, like, her caretakers. And he is so emotionally, like, deprived of empathy for her, even though she's also a fae, that it's disgusting how selfish he is toward... Yeah. He's kind of like, he's not even selfish. He believes in the cause of the solitary fae having freedom so hardcore that he cares about nothing else.
It's not just that she has to go meet them; she has to meet them and
The Thistle Witch, one of my favorite characters.
And basically, she goes to the glass swamp, which again, mud. Broken glass bottles, and there's a lot of fae there, including the Thistle Witch, who is one of the best characters. This scene is one of the best scenes.
There's not a lot of fae. It's just them two and a little like animal thing that
the owl thing.
Yeah, that the Thistle Witch loves on.
Basically, the Thistle Witch is like, we have a job for you. I'm gonna the scene is beautiful. Please read it. You can get the detail. But basically, they're like, we need to do this thing. This tithe is coming up, and we are currently under the rule of the Unseelie Court, and they suck. We'd like to be free, and so. You're actually a fae. Surprise! And if you have been, you've come to the ears of the Unseelie Queen, so they're going to pick you for the tithe, which we want them to do. And then we're going to reveal that you're not a human, but you're a fae, which makes the tithe obsolete, which means we get to be free for 7 years.
Not just that, but it'll make the Unseelie Queen seem like she was trying to trick everyone, which is, and somebody specifically makes the comment, is just like her to do. And, that would be and Kay's a solitary fae. So that would have been
it might have disrupted the rule enough that she would have been replaced.
Yeah. Exactly.
So Kay's like, holy shit, I'm a fae, what? And they were like, yes, you were taken. And so
you are a pixie.
And she's like, where's the actual Kay? And they're like, oh, I fucking know. And she asks, how can I see myself? And then they were like, no, you need to leave that that's a fantastic fucking glamour. You need to leave that shit on. And Kay's like, but if I wanted to see myself, and they basically tell her,
roll around in some clover, do all this stuff.
You need to, all these things, and one of it is a 4-leaf clover. Kay goes back to her house, and she's like, oh, I forgot, something happens before this point.
Not really.
The diner scene!
Has that happened yet?
Yeah.
Oh, it did.
It literally,
yes,
so I'm going to go back and describe a scene really quick because it's important because Kay gets
and something. Also equally unimportant as Maria and I discussed, and it could have been totally cut.
So this is where...
I thought this was after because later in the plot, he asks if she knew she was a pixie when she did that, and she said yes, so it had to have been after this.
No.
She didn't know that she could use his name and stuff. She didn't know
she could use his name.
He asked if she knew that she was a pixie when she did the diner.
I don't think it is. Where's my book? We can solve this
Oh my
problem.
God, does it matter?
It doesn't matter. Anyway, it's a diner scene.
And the reason I think she doesn't know is because she hasn't come to terms with, oh, actually, no, you're right, because she knows he's enchanted with her. You're right. It did happen after this. Anyway, so she goes home. She's sitting on her front lawn, and she's like, I want to fucking see myself. So she starts rolling in the fucking dirt and the grass, and her skin starts flaking off, and it's
sloughing off.
Literally going.
It's kind of gross.
She starts freaking out, and she ends up going, she tries to get to Janet, and then ends up seeing Corny, and Corny sees what is happening to her, and he's like, what the fuck? And she's like, I'm a fairy.
And he's kind of like, this is cool as shit.
He's immediately fascinated, and
she has wings.
And yes, because at one point he's brushing her.
That entire scene is gross.
Yes, he's trying to get some of the
don't say it yet.
No.
Let them figure it out themselves.
Yes, go read the scene. But anyway, Corny officially becomes her partner in crime in figuring out what the fuck she's doing with fairy shit. So they start like any teenagers looking shit up on the internet.
Oh my God, it's so great. I love that scene because he's like, oh, look, porn.
It just it was such a flash to the past because he's like, she notices the phone, which is very early 2000s. It's a Batman replica phone that has a red light that probably lights up when he gets a call. And he's like, "Oh, if you need to make the call, you better do it now because we only have the one line for internet." I'm like, "Oh my God."
She's like, "Okay, I need to put the glamour back on. I can't go back home like this. What the hell am I gonna do?" And she decides she's gonna look at she's gonna ask the Kelpie for help. So he Googles the Kelpie, and they discover the Kelpie likes to drown people. So he's like, "This sounds dangerous." And
as a side note, Kelpies are one of my favorite Celtic.
Yeah, no, they're really cool.
Yeah.
They're like, we're going to go do this. And she's like, I'm going to go. And he's like, no, you're not. Absolute. You think you're going to give me this fantastical thing and just fuck off and do it by yourself? I will not think I'm crazy for years.
Which I can appreciate.
No, listen, I love Corny. He's one of my favorite characters. I agree with his decisions.
He's also gay in a real, as in, he's not portrayed as what could have possibly been a very poor taste portrayal of.
He's not what you see, he's not the gay best friend. He's also kind of
he's very masculine, honestly.
He's also, the brief times that you do get inside his head, he's kind of messed up.
Oh man, that's an understatement.
Yeah, no, I
don't want to get into it because it doesn't matter for the plot, but
but the Star Trek did.
When I read this when I was in high school or whatever.
Hey, That was an important plot
No,
point.
it is not.
She said, like, the Star Trek thing under her breath.
It's just weird because, like, when I was reading it the first, like, when I was probably all the rereads up until now, it's like, he's really, like, why is she okay being around him? Like, this guy's, like, really dangerous. And then reading it now, I'm like, no, he seems like a good guy. It's just kind of interesting.
Like a little sociopathic.
He mimes shooting people as he drives by.
And he thinks
he's a school shooter vibe.
And he actively thinks about, like, there's this point. So they go to see the Kelpie because this will perfectly encapsulate what we're talking about. They go to see the Kelpie. She summons the Kelpie, and the Kelpie's like, "Hi, how can I help you?" And then she's like, "I need you to help me with magic." And he's like, "Well, that sounds like me giving you something and me getting nothing out of it. Give me that guy. I'll drown him." And she's like, "No, you can't have Corny." And he's like, "Well, once you figure out what you want to give me, I'll help you."
And Corny's like, "I know plenty of people we can kill, and I'd be very happy."
Kenny.
And he was totally serious about it. And Kay was like, "You can't. What are you talking about?" He's like, "No."
He was like, "Let's pick any one of the shit people."
They asked to kill someone. We can kill someone. Like, we can get you what you need. She's like, "No, we're finding another fucking way."
Exactly. And so her idea, which is a really, like, creative,
beautiful
and
idea.
The way Kay thinks, and I think this is the benefit of being human and fae.
She's empathetic.
But so she thinks, like, what is something that he would want that, like, because, like, killing someone is not going to last long. And she gets
companionship.
She gets that carousel horse from that warehouse, and it's great because this car scene of her in the car, well, because, like, she's fae now, she hasn't glamoured herself back up, she can't stand being in a car, which is all iron because fae are weak to iron.
So she gets sick.
She gets sick. It's this great, she's, like, languishing in the back seat. They've tied the carousel horse to the top of the car. It dents this car, but anyway, they bring it to the Kelpie. The Kelpie's like, "I got you," and teaches her basically how to make glamours, how to make things just look like it's there, how to make physical things.
There's this really cool part right above it, or right before it, where the Kelpie turns into a naked male, like a human male, and he kind of, like, very seductively is like, "Would he like to learn too? If so, I can trade something with him." And then Corny's like, "No."
Yeah,
and then Kay is like, "No," and he's like, "Fine." And then he turns into Kay. And but Corny, that's a really good point of how Corny, you can see his lust, but his smartness enough not to chase after that.
Yeah, like, he has really kind of I'm not saying that the gayness is a messed up desire, but he has really messed up desires that he's smart enough not to do. And I really appreciate that reading back on it as an adult.
They do this. Kay gets to glamour herself, and I think this is the point where she ends up going to the diner with Janet, and then that girl Fatima is there.
No, you know what? It does happen earlier, because right after that they go to the hill, the Dry Patch Hill in the cemetery.
No, that's now. They're about to go to the Dry Patch Hill.
We talked about the diner. We never actually described the diner.
Yes. So anyway, wherever this diner scene happens, between the three of us, these two who have read it multiple times, so whatever. Anyway, so the diner scene is this. She meets up with Janet, who is like, and it's after that night that went weirdly. Everybody's chill. She told Janet about Roybin at one point, and she was like, except she called him Robin.
The diner was before it, because at the diner, she catches a glimpse, and she's like, "Why is my face green?" And she wanders past. So it was actually before. That means, though,
I was right the first time.
That conversation I was talking about, I need to reread it, because, like, Holly that might be a plot hole.
So, trashy diner scene.
And while they're talking about, like, nonsense, and while they're there, Roybin comes up and is like, "May I speak with Miss Kay?" And they're all like, and Janet's like, "Damn, he is real. I thought you were just making shit up again." So they go talk, and she's answering questions, and she kind of gets pissed off.
She's asking questions.
Yeah, she's asking questions. He's answering them. She kind of gets pissed off at him, and he's like, "For my last question, I want your full name, motherfucker," because she knows in the Fae rules, someone's full name is very powerful, and, like, they do not give it away.
The reason she's kind of bitter towards him is because when they were in the glass swamp, she learned, or no,
because of that, it has to be afterwards.
She knows that they killed.
Weird.
Anyway, the point is that she does get bitter at him at one point, whether it's now or later. It's because Gristle was murdered by him during one of the many times he was ordered to do stuff. But back to the scene in the diner. Continue.
Yes. So, and she's like, "What's your name?" And he's like, "Oh, goddamn, fuck
Wrath
you,
Roybin Rye."
Which is just, like, I don't know, like, as names go, whatever. And she's like, "Well, Wrath Roybin Rye, kiss my ass." And, like,
and he does.
And he doesn't. I would argue this scene needed to go.
We were just talking about
Just arguing.
It's fine. It's fine.
He doesn't kiss her ass. he turns her over in the diner and just pulls her pants down enough to just get her upper hip. And I'm sorry, she said ass, my good sir. And if you're doing something to fully, because the thing is, he does this knowing that it's going to be, because he could have taken her to the side and kissed her ass. No, he did it in public because he knew it would mortify her.
I don't think he can time that. It's because as soon as she says his name, he has to listen then.
I think it does count as her ass because, like, he lowers it enough that, like, it might be, like, the curve of the ass. Like, he doesn't kiss the side hip.
Yeah, see, this is what I argue.
The text literally says upper hip. So I'm sorry if Holly Black should have said ass.
Whatever, who cares?
He pulls it down. Anyway, I just think that would have been more mortifying because
it would have been,
what she realizes that, like, he physically cannot deny it.
And he literally pulled her pants down. But then again, like, she should have said, kiss my naked ass rather than kiss my ass.
That's not the phrase, though.
Yeah, and he didn't need to pull her. He could have just kissed her ass, but, like, kissed her actual ass cheek.
She didn't say it as, like, a command. She said it because she was mad. He said something that made her mad, and she's like, just kiss my ass. Like, an insult of, like, go the fuck away. And then he does it, and she's like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. What would he have done if she said, you can suck my dick?
Glamour's powerful.
I don't want to say that because there is an actual answer to that. And I don't want to go into that.
All you have to do is glamour her. All you have to do is glamour her dick.
Nope.
There's still another solution to that. That's true.
Yep.
Okay.
Ladies.
Anyway, so she's mortified, and she also realizes the power that the name has. Like, she had no idea that it is a compulsion that you cannot deny. And so she's mortified. And then all of her friends are like, what the fuck? This guy's an asshole. What happened? And they're like helping her. Like, she's kind of by herself by the bathroom, like getting herself together. And Kenny comes up to her. And by this point, she realizes she's enchanted Kenny because he's called her a bunch of times. And he's like, I can't stop thinking about you. But she realizes now that
this does happen before because she doesn't know how to break the glamour.
Exactly.
Or not the glamour, the enchantment.
And he starts, like, kissing her, and she, like, turns her face because she doesn't want to kiss him because, again, it's Janet's boyfriend, but she also doesn't push him away. And, again, we're going to talk about this, like, push and pull between what she knows she should be doing, but what she allows to happen. He's kissing down her neck, and then Janet walks in, and everybody's
like,
Janet,
Jesus.
No. And I don't like this scene, and this is why I argue that I think...
I dislike the scene, too. I always have.
This is why... Kenny is going to be used. There's going to be a moment later where she realizes she likes being able to control this good-looking, popular guy. She likes that power. And this is that Fae in her coming out. I think this would have been done way better with using her mom and her grandmother. And the reason why is because you get her interacting with Kenny after this and her dealing with, like, that... But she never has a moment where her and Janet talk about the fact that her boyfriend was kissing her.
They talk but it's not worth it. It's because Janet believes her too easily, I think.
It's not even that. Like, from the way that it is actually discussed, like, I might be talking about a different point than you, Katie. Yeah. Janet actually just, like, goes up to her and she's like, Kenny might want to sleep with you, but he's never going to want to date you.
Yes.
And, like,
that's a good point.
The end of it. Because, like, she knows that Kenny just, like, it's just lust and she doesn't care.
And it's a weird thing for someone who's, like, I don't like how there's
now that you point that out.
I don't like that there isn't, like, for me, there needed to be a little bit more of a blowback. And I think what a more impactful scene would have been, because she doesn't know Kenny from a bar of soap.
There's a lot of blowback from it. It's just not between the two of them.
For me as a reader, I think it would have been more impactful to have it between her and Janet, and then for her to realize that, like, she gets that she upset Janet, and she doesn't like that, but she also kind of doesn't, like, and I mean, like, to express her fainess, and to have her be like, but I also don't care, and I would have done it again.
Nah, I'm good.
Anyway, so there's that scene. Again, wherever it happens, she learns how to use her magic. Ludi Lou tells them that, like, you can get into the Unseelie Court and the under area if you find the patch of grass that is, like, brown on the hill. So they go. There is everything's brown, but they end up finding it. They go in, or she goes in, and she's like, you're not coming, stay out here. To Corny. She's like, stay the fuck here, Corny. You got it. And he's like, you better come back. I do not want to be crazy in 40 years.
So the reason that she's going under there is to find Royben. And also in general, she seems to have an attraction to, like, discovering this. Her curiosity gets the best of her. And so she goes underneath, and I'm pretty sure this place is called the Termite something. I don't remember what. But there's a lot of stalactites, so it kind of seems like it's really deep under the earth, very hellish in that way. And there's, like, if you've ever seen Pan's Labyrinth, the room with the creature, is exactly the way I picture it. With there's plump, beautiful apples that when you bite into them, don't know what, like they taste rotted, but beautiful. Like it's enchanting. You eat just all of it. Num 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 num. And there's all these things happening that look like these fae are playing, but it's all cruel games for the most part. Every now and again, you get like a chess set or something, or like some random game with rocks. But she ends up seeing Corny in there playing chess with a fae, and he's like, "Ooh, this is like," he's like drunk with the fairy wine, which, you know, the old myth that if you drink or eat anything, then you're stuck there, which does not come into play necessarily here. But
it's real intoxicating.
Yes, it's very intoxicating. And she ends up spying Roybin in front of the Unseelie Queen, who she sees for the first time. I used to call her Nikivian for the longest, like just in my brain, because I mush letters together, but
Nick Nebbin.
Is that it?
Nick Nebbin.
She sees her for the first time, how gloriously, enchantingly beautiful she is, and how like dark and like cruel she also, like to some degree, because she talks very cruelly. And that's when you kind of see how Roybin hates serving her. A little bit.
You get this scene from Roybin's point of view.
Yes. And Roybin's very reluctant to serve her, but must. Because what has happened is he used to be part of the Seelie court, and this other guy was part of the Unseelie court. Yes. But they were traded. And that's how like he got stuck there. And he loves his queen, the Seelie Queen. He did love her to pieces. He wanted to serve her, knight in shining armor, like I said before, the whole shebang. And so this has really sullied his view of her. It's because why would she send him to be in such a dark, horrible place? So anyway, he catches Kay towards the end. And
no, you're skipping the important part.
Oh,
the Queen's like, oh, I'm so glad to see you're alive, Roybin, and I hear I have a mortal girl to thank for that. And he was like, yeah, she was fine, you know, it was just a girl, don't worry about it. She said she might be friends with a solitary fae, and she was like, you know, the tithe is coming up, I think she'd be perfect. And he's like, oh, god damn it, I can't tell her, no, I don't want to, because then she'll definitely make me bring this girl.
Yes.
But he tries, like, covertly to be like, nah, let's pick another one. We don't need to use her. And she's like, no, that's my choice.
She has the sight because she saw things, and, you know, that's like a perfect sacrifice. We're good to go.
Basically, you know, I want her. And then Nephamael pops up, and she's like, oh, Nephamael, welcome home.
And as a side note, he has iron thorns, like in a Christ-like figure, or Christ-like wreath crown, and he has thorns all over him, and it's burning into him, so he
has thorns in clothes.
Yes, but he also has it actually on his arms too, wrapped around. It's described much later, and so it's really burning into his flesh. So it's like this weird, like, I'm going to embrace the only weakness everyone has, so I maybe don't have that weakness.
Kay's like watching all this, and she's like, oh shit, and she kind of gets the idea that like Roybin can't really help what the Unseelie Queen asks him to do, and then Roybin like grabs her, and she at first thinks he recognizes her, but she doesn't, because she's a pixie now. And he's like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. If they find out you're here, shit's gonna be bad. Leave. And she kind of kisses him, and it's like,
she steals a kiss.
She steals a kiss, yeah. But it's like, they're both like, oh, what? And she's like, man, that was ballsy.
This is the first time that she realizes that she really is a tricksy pixie.
As she's trying to leave, like, she realizes as he's pushing her out that she needs to find Corny, but she can't get back to him, and she's afraid if she, like, it'll alert everyone to Corny's presence. So he throws her out, and she can't get back in. She's, like, literally digging in the dirt at the spot where the door was before, trying to get back into this place. She can't. She ends up glamoring herself, going home, and like it's rough. It's been a rough time. She wakes up the next morning, and
same day. She just went to sleep for a little bit.
Yeah, she gets a phone call. No, because it was nighttime, and then it's the morning the next day because they did this at night. That's true. And because she assumes that it only works at night, and so that she's gonna have to wait the next day. But she ends up getting woken up from sleep by. I think it's just her grandmother discovering she wasn't going to school or something.
No, that was on the phone. Her mom has messages for her from people.
Oh, yeah, from Kenny. Kenny. And so she decides she's going to meet up with Kenny to get rid of, like, now that she knows, what to do, she's going to meet up with Kenny. She meets up with him after school.
This is a great scene.
Yeah. She meets up with him after school, and he's like, I can't get you out of my head. I keep thinking about you. You need to make this end. It's like fucking with my life.
Then she gets really invested in that pixie nature of hers, and she's like, tell me how much you want me. Tell me how much you need me. What would you do? What would you do?
She's also like mini parkouring all over the steps. Like she's making a scene out of all of it.
Like, no, she's like doing like that typical like fairy shit, and all the students are watching, and she just feels like a total outsider, and it brings her some type of like vicious satisfaction that he's like all the other boys that would like be gross to her. And all these people that she, like, this world of normal studentship, of everybody doing what everybody does as a human, she's not a part of, and it really makes her feel far apart from everything that she thought she could be before.
It says that she realized she likes being able to control this pretty popular boy. She likes that power. And then she's like, oh God, this is exhausting. And she's like, she waves it off, and he's like...
Well, she doesn't like that she likes it. That's why she's like, never mind.
And again, this is exhausting. So she releases him. He fucks off. And then she gets a phone call from Corny. And Corny's like, what the fuck? Like, where have you been? And she's like, I thought you were still stuck. And they meet up, and Corny's talking. She was like, I'm so glad you got out of there. And he was like, it was amazing. And what you realize is Nephimel found Corny and did things. Corny's got like marks all over his arms, and every time he touches them, he's like,
but he also feels sickened by them.
This is the thing, though, is because like the way it's described is like Corny might have like some masochist tendencies, but it doesn't read as though that's what's happening. It reads as though he's enchanted, and that's why he's in.
100%. And it, because he's fully like, these moments happen where his face takes on this certain look that it had when he was under there, and Kay's like, oh shit, this no good.
She goes to work at the gas station she applied for, and they don't think that she's going to get picked up for the tithe until Samhain. And
Halloween.
But that doesn't happen. Nephimel comes up to her and is like, yo, it's new glamour with this necklace thing that is really, really powerful. And he's like, oh, hoo, hoo, glamour. And then she gets carried off by a whole bunch of creatures that nobody can see. And then she's plopped down in the Unseelie court.
The queen's like, ho, 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 you're going to be our tithe. It's such a good... And she's enchanted. So the queens have this power. Kay's reaction to other fae, like most
is not
enchanted. Like, she's not enchanted by Royben. She's not enchanted by Royben's sister and the other. But the queens have this thing about them, and so she looks at the queen
and does everything she says,
and it's like, wow, she's so beautiful, I want to make her happy. And so the queen's like, would you like to be part of our tithe?
And then she crawls forward even in the ground.
So it's very degrading. And then she's like, Royben, get her ready. And so Royben has to take her, and he's like, oh god, why didn't you say no? What did you like? Why didn't
you use my name? You know my name.
This is so shit. Like, what is happening? And he has to get her fitted for a dress, and the entire time he's like, this is basically a funeral shroud. And he takes her to his room, and by the time they're in his room, she's kind of come out of it. He's got a painting on the wall
that's shredded of the Seelie Queen.
The Seelie Queen
has Yeats,
Paradise Lost and stuff, and they like bond over their like
really moody literature.
Like, oh, I don't just read normal books. Like, this is one of those moments where I'm like, I hate their relationship. You guys feel, it literally feels like that girl who's like, I'm not like other girls, and the college professor,
and he's the guy who's like, he's not like other guys, and like,
yeah, and it's like that young college.
It does
professor.
Not say this. It does not say this,
but it feels like it's got that vibe of like that young college professor being like, oh, you read this? You're really mature for your age.
I want to describe the next part. One thing I really want to describe is when I was young, much younger, like 6th grade young, and I read the scene where a red cap, which is a small like fae creature that dips his hat into carnage, and like they just plop it back on their head, and like gore and stuff comes out, and that's why they're called a red cap. And they also used to like skin scalps and wear them and stuff like that, hence the red cap. When I was really young, of course I didn't pick up on this, but as I got older and I read this scene, it was so freaking gruesome when it described the carnage. But anyway, so off they go to the tithe, and there's this one scene, and the Unseelie Queen decides to kind of play with her beforehand, and there's this established thing now that she could potentially win her freedom if she answers a riddle. And the queen is like, okay, my heart is as hard as stone, but yet cut my flesh, and it weeps tears of blood. And actually, I noticed something. This is very interesting little note. I downloaded the digital book for this to read. It's because I didn't want to have to rely on the book. It's because I wanted to read off my computer and stuff and make notes. In this book, when she ends up thinking of the clue, and she's like, should I answer it? Should I not? Should I disrupt the plan? Spike and Ludi Lou are supposed to come save her before she becomes sacrificed, and like rip off the glamour and show what she is. But
they never said that.
Nephimel was supposed to do that. They had an insider, aka Nephimel, who was supposed to do that.
They never specify if they're taking the glamour off while she's alive.
Yes, and so she believes in them. She trusts them a whole bunch, but she's starting to question that the closer they get. And she's also also somewhat questioned it before because it's like, are they still the same creatures that she thought of when she was younger and trusted?
Well, because they started, specifically Spike started talking about how all the mortals are useless and stupid and everything like that. So she's like, oh, wait, hold on a second.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have been my friend if I had been human like I thought I was. She ends up deciding, yes, I am going to answer. I'm going to try to have some agency over what happens to me. And she answers a cherry. Fun fact, in this new digital copy, it does not have a piece of narration that comes right after it. And in the book, she actually, because there's this really high focus on the fact that there's an assumption that Royben had sex with her in the room, she thinks to herself, is she trying to be funny? As in, like, popping the cherry?
It was in the audiobook.
Oh, it was not in this book. I thought that was fascinating. I was like, did they clean it up? Anyway, and so she answers, but then the Unseelie Queen's like, okay, Royben, I gift her to you. And he's like, yes. And then she's like, now give her back to me because you served me. And he's like, I feel like he should have expected that, honestly.
So they chain her down on the ground, and they're, like, doing the tithe, and it's
on this big, like...
And again, this is where he was like, what is something that is yours, but others use more often than you? Like, wink, 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 wink. And she's also like, oh my god. As she's chained down and shit's about to happen, she's like, are they just going to take the glamour off of my dead body? Because the thing is, the person has to die for the tithe to technically work. And so, like, she's realizing in this moment that, like, she might actually be supposed to die. And she's like, oh no, this no good. And so then she's like, Wrath, Royben, Rye, do me a heckin' save.
But not until literally they were about to stab her.
And then she says, cut my bonds, which he does. And then her glamour comes off during this whole debacle.
Yeah, Nephamael is like, Cha! And then there's a battle. He's fighting and, like, helping her. And then at one point, she's like, Wrath, Royben, Rye, run! And he doesn't hear her because he's too far away. And then he realizes she's a pixie and he's, like, pissed. But then he ends up killing Knebin. And everybody, like, shit's gone to hell. And, like, Lulu is like, well, this is a mess. This didn't go as planned. And she's, like, trying to get out of the things.
Ludylu's the only true friend,
yes,
honestly.
Ludylu's. And also, we don't know about Gristle. Gristle might have been a true friend.
Yeah, but he's dead.
He's dead. Royben is super fucking pissed. And she's like, no, I order you to come with me and escape now. They end up escaping. They go to her house. And he's like, I would like to leave now. And she's like, no, I need to explain what the situation was. So she orders him to stay. She explains the whole situation, was like, look, I didn't know. And number one, I didn't mean to get your name. I did not know that. Like,
and this is where the true puppy love comes in.
Yes. And she explains the whole thing. They end up going to sleep. He sleeps on, I think, the mattress, and she sleeps on the box spring, which is hysterical because that is very uncomfortable. And then the next morning, they're like, cutesy. And this is where Royben goes from being like,
really realistic, maybe, to
and like
unrealistic,
depressy trauma baby to like cracking
perfect
jokes.
Boyfriend who
yes,
he's making a small talk with the family, and he's like, oh, why didn't you just tell me that this was the reason you wanted to not go to New York? And I'm like, and she's just like,
oh, because her mom wanted to move to New York. But anyway, during the scene, okay, so she wakes up one time, something happens, and then the next time Royben's not there, and she thinks, he left, and then she's like, I'm gonna go run after him, and then she stops and she's like, no, like, why would I run after him? He's left, blah, blah, blah. She starts going downstairs, and he's sitting on the couch with her mother watching Batman cartoons and eating white bread with honey out of the jar.
An extraordinarily excessive amount, which is great. That's the one thing I like that Royben likes a lot of honey, because I am a white bread and honey girl. They end up like
making a plan,
because he's like, we have to deal with this, and she's like, what are you talking about? It's dealt with. The free fae are free.
Then the news comes on,
and they realize like there's been a bear attack, a bunch of kids are missing,
all these fae are going hog wild.
All the solitary fae are now, because what kept them, and what Kay didn't realize, is what kept them under control was the Seelie and Unseelie courts. That's what kept them from being able, because there's a part where the Kelpie is like, it's been years since I've been able to just at my will, like, it's only if somebody literally gets close enough that I can take them. I can't go find them and drown them anymore. And he was like, we're not allowed to be free. And then you realize in this moment, oh shit, it was the Unseelie court keeping them from being able to do that. Like, as much as it was like shit for that, so she's like, oh, we gotta fix this. And her friend Janet's like, you want to go to a rave tonight? And she's like, Janet, don't you dare go to that goddamn rave. Shit's dangerous. And so
Janet goes anyway.
They go and they find Gristle, I think, not Gristle, Spike, and the other fae. And she's like, guys, shit's crazy. Everybody's killing.
And they're like, no shit, it's great.
He's like, this is bad. This is exactly what we wanted. And she's like, no, they're killing humans. And he was like, fuck humans, fuck humanity. And she's like, oh God, you were only friends with me because I was Fae. You weren't like good, like kind people thinking up on this.
The Faerie were not as innocent and wonderful as she once pictured.
Exactly. And so this is like, at the beginning I said there's like her opinion changes of the Fae, and she was like, no, we gotta fix this. And they find out from Ludi Lou that the Seelie Queen is coming, and she's going to be in an apple orchard, and there's only one nearby, so she has to drive to the, and she also realizes at this point, or no, it's going to happen. So she goes to the
rave.
The rave. She's at the rave. Roybin goes with.
I always thought this scene was kind of weird.
It is. I don't know. I would have preferred.
They're not going for the rave. They're going to see Janet.
And she's like, Janet's there. I'm gonna like make sure she's okay. But she gets distracted because Kenny comes, and she wants to kind of like apologize to Kenny, but then she gets up to him and she's like, never mind, I don't actually need to, but like, okay, bye. And it's like, he's like, oh, okay, that's weird. But she left Janet to go do that.
No, he was really nasty to her.
Yeah, and then when she comes back, Janet is going off with a very familiar looking
naked
fellow.
Man.
It's the Kelpie, and he drags her into the ocean.
And she jumps over the boardwalk pier into the ocean, tries to save her. Roybin
literally,
her out.
like she sees the red hair of Janet going in.
It's a very beautiful image.
She's pulling like clumps of Janet's hair, trying to get her. She keeps diving. She ends up having a conversation with the Kelpie where she's like, "I'll trade you anything."
And he's like, "It's done. She's dead."
Too late. And then like the body floats up and like washes on the shore, and she's like sitting there holding Janet, sobbing. And Roybin's like, "Do you have a fucking death wish? I have never seen someone throw themselves into so many dangerous situations, you son of a bitch." And she's just really upset, and he takes her home. She wakes up the next morning, and he's holding her like...
Good boyfriend.
Again, I would have been much happier if they were just friends. I don't buy this.
So off they go to the apple orchard.
No. Before that, they have to go break into Corny's car, which is amazing, because they need to drive to the apple orchard.
Side note, Corny's been kidnapped.
Yes, she realizes Nephamael has Corny.
She pitches this idea of like, oh, well, we can just drive there, because Roman's like, it's really far away. We can just drive there. And he's like, dude, cars are made of steel, which has iron. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she pulls out like these orange mittens or something. She's
kitchen gloves.
If I'm not touching it, it'll be fine. And he just looks at her like she's crazy, because like not touching it is one thing, but just being in the car made her have to like fall out of the car and like vomit. And she's gonna try to drive. So they go to the trailer park, and like she breaks into Corny's car and like steals it. And she has a note of like, no one's giving a shit that I'm breaking into a car in broad daylight and driving off with it. Like, okay, sure.
Also, side note, she was gonna punch the window open, and Roybin's like, just get a rock.
Here's the hilt of my knife, you
absolute yeah. barbarian.
She's never driven before, and it reads as though she's never even like practiced driving before.
She has not.
And he's like, have you ever driven before? And she's like, no, I didn't even get my license yet.
Because literally, she asked that because she tries to like gun it, and like the car doesn't move. She's like, oh, the parking brake's on, and then she like guns it, and she's like, wait, nope, that's too fast, I need to stop. And Roybin's just like, what is wrong with you?
You're a terrible human. So they go to the apple orchard, and once they pass a certain group of trees, she realizes she's passed into Fae realm, and they now no longer can see like the humanity that was surrounding them, and people are setting up. There's like all of the like Seelie Fae ladies,
the poets that have been stolen, the mortal poets that have been stolen away.
There's a bunch of little kids, and she's like, oh shit, are those the kids that would heckin' stolen?
Yes, they are. And Kay's human alter self is there.
She finds her at the end. But anyway, the Seelie Queen pops up. She's like, Roybin, so good to have you. And he's like, nah, fuck you. Like, I'm not here for that. I'm like, what is happening? And she's like, well, Nephamael has made himself the new Unseelie king. And you get from this interaction that, like, as much as Kay has spent a lot of time thinking, he's in love with her, he's real bitter towards the Seelie Queen, and it's not, like, a pleasant interaction. And basically what they learn is they have to go back, they have to get rid of Nephamael, and they also, they need to save Corny. And the Seelie Queen is like, no, stay, serve me. And he's like, nope, not gonna do that. And she's like, And then they end up just, like, trying to leave, and then his sister pops up and is like, Roybin, it's your home. And he's like, this isn't my home anymore, sis. I like your
She's
long
like
hair.
the innocent, untouched, and he's like, the blood on my hands has stained too deep.
And it's also on the Seelie Queens, and she's like, don't say such blasphemy. She looks at Kay like a little suspiciously because she's like, are you the one? Because she's like, you love the young Seelie Queen.
Seelie.
Yeah, the Seelie Queen. More's the pity I do. But anyway, so they go to get Corny, and so they have to get into, like, they literally leave this area, and they need to get into the Unseelie Palace underground, and he knows a tree. So they go to a tree, they get in, they go to wine cellars, they see a lady who's a seamstress.
I like that we get a look into the help. It's all of like the cooks, the laundry people.
Yeah. And there's a laundry woman they meet who is important because of something or a seamstress lady who's going to be important because of something that comes later. They end up going to this room that is a giant chess set, a la McGonagall and Harry Potter. And Corny is literally on the floor laying across two of the tiles. As she runs to him, Nathaniel pops in and is like, Rath Robin Ryan. And she's like, oh shit, you know his name. And
it's because Spike gave it to him.
Fucking Spike.
Before he was killed.
Because Nephamael gets the name and then murders him. Fucking Spike. But anyway, so Nephamael like starts taking control of Roybin, and there's a scene where he's like, grab the pixie, and Roybin grabs her and then immediately lets her go, and he's like, you're really good at taking orders, but you don't know how to give them yet, motherfucker.
I really liked that.
That's
the great part of his personality is when he's like that, not where he's like clever little
one-liners. Where did these quips? I had the same complaint in Savior's Champion, because he's like, the main character is like a sad piece of toast for like the first part of the book, and then like something happens and all of a sudden he's hitting you with these quippy one-liners and like smirking and being all sassy, and I'm like, where the fuck did you come from? And it's the same thing here. He's hitting you with the quippy one-liners.
But he only has a bubble of it. Yeah. Like there's a bubble in the middle of the story, and then everything else, the bookmarked ends of the story, he's like
a
normal,
pressy toast,
essentially.
Anyway, and so she runs off, and then she's like, she doesn't know how to get out. She's in this like one place, and she's like, what am I gonna do?
Long story short, it's a really cool thought process, and she's like, okay, I need to think like a mortal girl. What can I do to take advantage of this situation? Oh, I can glamour myself, but I need to think more like a mortal girl. I can glamour myself, but not very well. And then she thinks, I am wearing goth boots. I have in the middle steel-toed, but also in the middle steel screws. And she's like, I'm going to poison Nephamael. I'm going to glamour myself as the Skillywitten, which is the seamstress. And I'm going to go up there and poison him. Meanwhile, right before this happens, poor Roybin is being made to dance and then be whipped while dancing. And Nephamael is just being a little shit. He's just like, and then this is Corny right here. Yeah, wait, these are my grapes.
That's the thumbnail.
Yes, my boy servant. Continue dancing, and then Kay comes up as Skillywitten and very trickily pours the little iron screws into a wine goblet that's going to be served to him. But he immediately, like after that, once he takes
like actually looks at her,
he's like, you little bitch, and snatches it off, the glamour off, and he's gonna make Roybin kill her because they gag her so she can't use his name. And he's about to kill her when Nephamael drinks, and also, as I said, Corny's here.
Yeah.
And poor Corny is just like obsessed with the grapes that he's being fed.
You actually get this partially from Corny's perspective.
He wants to break away, but he can't. Nephamael takes a drink, and then he coughs, and he's on the floor writhing.
And while this is happening, Roybin is still, because he wasn't given a counter order, he's still like, and what he was told is to cut Kay until she dies, and so he has a choice to either kill her quickly or like cut her in little pieces and hope for a save. So Nephamael is dying in a corner. Roybin is about to get Kay. Luckily, Ludi Lu's there, and she's undoing the thing around her mouth, and as it comes down, she's like, Rath Roybin, rise, stop! And then they like, thank God we're alive, and then they turn, and Corny has picked up a knife and is just
repeatedly stabbing Nephamael.
Just like,
I love that. And laughing at the end.
Like cackling, like uncontrollable laughter.
And then the Seelie court comes in.
Roybin's like, because there's also like the free fae, and he's like, guys, you can either let them rule you, or I can be your king, and I will give you on Halloween, you get to do whatever the fuck you want for one night.
What happens before that happens, though, is very important because there is a plot afoot. What happens is Kay is up in the air in her little wings the first time she's fluttering, and she sees the Seelie Queen, and she specifically sees that stone necklace that Nephimel was wearing when he put the glamour on her, and she puts two and two together, and she's like, this is a long-ass plot. Like, this is a long-ass, like, political plot. Or scheme, I should say, really. The whole shtick is that the Seelie Queen exchanged Kay. That's why Kay's mortal version, the kid that she replaced, is in the Seelie court. Kay was placed there with the glamour so she could grow older.
That the Seelie Queen herself put on her.
Yes. And so she could, and that's why Spike, Gristle, and Ludi Lou were all from the Seelie court originally, and they came to take care of her. Kay grew up, and the whole plot was for her to be sacrificed, for that to happen, and for the Seelie Queen to try to take over more land.
Yeah.
During the chaos. However, what went awry is Rathroib Rye and Kay.
Yeah, because McNebbin was not supposed to die. And Nephimel was not supposed to make himself king.
Nonetheless, because he is serving the Seelie Queen, she could still rule through him. And so that was the whole scheme. And Kay has always been a clever character, so she puts two and two together, and she's like saying all this. And then this is finally when Roiben is like, I am going to be king if you will take me, and every Samhain, you guys get like crazy freedom if you bind yourselves to me. And they do. It's because he they know him to be a very powerful person.
And because at least one night a year to fuck up some mortals, and too bad.
And then the Seelie Queen's like, and then trails off because she can't do anything about that.
And then the book cuts away, and
ends very kind of abruptly
to a funeral, and it's Janet's funeral, and Kay's back glamored. It's her and Corny. Corny is still, kind of traumatized from what happened, but he's also he's like, that will never happen again. I'm gonna never be weak. Which immediately I'm like, this is a villain origin story, and it definitely plays into how he interacts in the third book.
And it's so sweet. It's because Janet always painted her fingernails with sparkly nail polish, so she puts a little thing of blue sparkly nail polish in her casket.
And so it's like a cute, quiet scene, and then at the end, and I hated this.
I hated this scene even when I was a kid.
This so much. Okay, so your best friend is dead. Who you've known from childhood. You were just at her funeral. You watched her die. It was gutting. At the end of the funeral,
Faerie, maybe.
I know, but
I don't think that's a good argument.
It's gauche.
It is.
And so you're on the steps of the funeral parlor, and Corny's like, I'm gonna go see my mom, and then all of a sudden Roiben comes up and he's like, hey, how you doing? And then he's like,
I have something to give you back that I owe you. Kisses. And she's like, well, maybe I don't want it. Maybe I want to give it back.
I want you to take it back. So he kisses her
and
again.
He's like, as you command. And then that's how it ends.
And I'm like, no, fuck you. Again, this would have been so much, because the things that are great about this book are not the romance, and the romance for me actively detracts. Every time there's a scene where she's like, why are you here? And I would have liked it if he was like, because you saved me. You're surprising. You're a badass. But I would have liked if it was friendly. But it's kind of treated as a romantic.
But instead, he's just like, because I want to be.
And no. He's like, I want to be because you're kind and something and
recklessly brave. And it reads, instead of being this cool moment of I value you and respect you as a person. It's a romantic declaration.
He's more like, you're cute.
Yeah, and I don't, and so anytime those moments happen, I'm like, nah.
I mean, they're not on the same playing field, so I don't know that they they can't have her, I don't know. But
again, anyway. That's why they should be friends, and when she's maybe in her 40s, something else could happen. I'm not here for this. Anyway.
My favorite poem of all time is Tamlin, and it has been told in many variations, and I'm going to very quickly summarize it. But honestly, we already did. It's because that's the inspiration for this story. The poem is about how there's this Janet, actually is her name. She although there's many different names for her, her father owns all these lands, and it is well known that Tamlin was a really handsome knight that got stolen away by the fairy queen and now lives among the fairies. And he's imprisoned. Janet goes off, and she knows she's not supposed to be going around these hills. It's because Tamlin's sort of known to go there and impregnate mortal women and then they don't have a husband and they're out of wedlock and have a baby. She's like, but these are my father's lands. I should be allowed to be here. And so she goes and by a well, Tamlin's like, yo, has sex with her. She has a baby, but she's like, no, I want the father of my child. So she goes there.
I ain't gonna be out of wedlock woman.
No. And she's like, no, that's not what's gonna happen
Not
here.
today.
And so she goes to him and he says, okay, well, at the end of every 7 years, we pay a tithe to hell. They are going to go on a fairy parade, and at the end of the parade, they're going to kill him. But if she can catch him when he purposely falls off his horse because he's not supposed to get off the horse, then if she is strong enough to carry him all the way to the well and drop him in, then he's hers. And the queen there doesn't want that to happen. So when she does catch him, a poor pregnant woman having to carry this full-grown man off a horse. Anyway, he turns into... When he drops off, he turns into all these grotesque creatures, and it's supposed to scare her into dropping him. But she's a pretty cool heroine for an old Irish.
This is one of the this is really great. If you've never read it, please do.
Anyway, she drops him in. She wins him. That is the overall inspiration for Tithe and why it is called Tithe. And it's the 7-year seat. You can see how Kay and Royben are kind of like not parodies, pantomimes of that
See, I really like the Tamlin story because it's not like she's in love with him. She's just like, I ain't gonna be no single woman out of wedlock. We're living my life. And I like those kinds of things because at the end of that, then you'd be like, okay, they're going to get married, obviously, and then they're going to have to fall in love with each other. And I really like those kind of dynamics. It's one of the reasons why I like the romance in Spinning Silver, because they didn't get married for love. And at the end of it, he accepts okay, I'm going to treat you like a wife, where beforehand he wasn't really treating her like her. And so they have to fall in love from that point onwards, which I love. I like that dynamic.
But they have to earn the respect
Exactly.
First. And the thing is Royben does not, I would argue, respect Kay.
He is into, you could say, maybe idolizes, as Katie pointed out, but I don't feel like that. And again, I don't exactly know what Holly Black...
She's also young, though.
Yes. I don't exactly know what Holly Black... Katie was talking about how she's reading it versus how she thinks Holly Black was trying to portray the romance, and I'm really not sure. Part of me thinks it's a little bit more simplistic than we are making it, and it's just... a not greatly executed romance, and that's it.
It's a young adult romance.
And it's and it's not even, one of the great, and again, because she can do a good young adult romance, because she literally does it in the second book, and it might just be the fact that, I think Tithe was her first novel, so she's figuring her shit out.
Actually, that's not her first novel.
It's not? Okay, never mind. We can't offer her that.
White Cat is a really good novel.
Oh, I've never read it. Maybe. So that's one of the detractors in this. Again, I made the argument before, or no, I made it to Katie. I think there's too many scenes with Kenny specific, especially because his point.
You could take two out.
You could take two of them out. I don't care what two, but the most important scene is in front of the schoolhouse when she's dance
and the initial scene.
Yeah, and the initial scene. Those are the only two that really, really matter. And because you get that he's obsessed with her because he keeps calling, and her mom's like, Kenny keeps calling, and that's it. You could have had and then maybe the scene at the club. I also wish, because Janet dies, I wish there would, and this is why I would have preferred less Kenny, more Janet, and why I would have liked the conflict to be with Janet and not with her being for her to go, I don't think I would have done it differently, and then for Janet to die and for her to have that guilt about that. Is so couching the conflict less so with Kenny but more so with Janet would have been so much a better payoff for her death at the end.
Yes.
Because you focus so much of this not on Janet, but on fucking Kenny.
Janet's pretty likable around the little bits that you get, so I think it's it is definitely a lost gem of a potential scene, maybe once or twice.
And it just because she dies, my emotional reaction is I'm sad for Kay, but I don't feel the impact because we're not really given a lot of their interaction, and I think had that been explored more, that would have been a way better payoff for it, and it's why I made the comment that having the conflict not be with her and Kenny, but with her and Janet.
And the thing is it's not as if this is a childhood friend so that she just came back to and they haven't been talking for ages. They just haven't seen each other for a while, but they've been emailing each other incessantly.
Exactly. You don't feel that. You get closer. I was more gutted that Corny was captured than when Janet, and that shouldn't be the case. And it's one of those things where there was this period of women writing women where like the focus wasn't necessarily always on, not that I'm not blanket stating, but there's been a lot of books that I've read, especially during that period, where like girls are having way closer relationships with other male characters than they are with other female characters. And which isn't to say that this book is like a problematic in that case. It's just, I think the focus could have been there, and it would have made Janet's death, especially because we get her funeral. We end at her funeral. For the import she's given in the latter half, she should have been given some more, a couple of sprinklings. I would have liked a scene where like the two of them were like had a sleepover and just like ate pizza and raw cookie dough and watching like an old Star Trek that her mom had on, like something like that.
They didn't even need to add another scene. They have a scene like that, but it's not long.
Yes.
It's when she comes over to paint nails. She's painting her nails and stuff.
I think adding one more scene, like to have that and then have another scene, but have them bond a little bit more. Anyway, so that's my overall feeling. Again, the narration, the prose in this is gorgeous. It's really well written. It has a specific vibe that I have not found in a lot of other things. I haven't read any of her later stuff, though I have heard some people say that Tithe, like this series, is one of her best compared to.
Maybe there's one other writer that kind of writes like this.
Who? Oh, you. Oh, no. And again, I said this before. Katie far outshines Holly Black.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, 100%. I said it in the Q&A.
I don't know that I would say that.
Oh, I would. Any day of the week.
You know I'm like legit obsessed with you haven't written me any more stories.
I want you to know, anytime I think about writing, I use that as a major point of inspiration.
And yet you still don't give it.
Katie's prose is, like, in the moments where Holly Black's writing is at its best, that's Katie's writing just normally. Like, it's not even when her writing is at its best. Like, she really, and you could tell this is the inspiration, this is the thing that sparked what she wanted out of her writing.
I also love your writing, though, because it's like, I don't have to guess at what's going on as much as I do with other books. It's like, you take all the best things and then you also apply it for people who don't understand people. It's wonderful.
So it'll be like bordering on purple prose, and then it'll be at the end, smack dab.
This is what I was trying to, like, symbolism, the meaning.
Like, it's the beauty and then the harsh reality of what's happening.
Yeah.
Again, I think this, like, really has, like, importance. Funnily enough, it is sometimes on banned book lists.
What? Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, are you kidding me? Like, if Harry Potter's there, Tithe is absolutely there. What are we talking about? I enjoyed it this time. I definitely, like, there are definitely things, as we've said, as we've gone through, that I think could have been better and more polished, but for that time period, and I would say I don't think I appreciated this book as much when I was younger. Again, because I was there, like, at that age, I was really there for romance and plot. And while this had a fun plot, the romance was real weak. And now, as an adult, I love that atmosphere. Yum. And this book got atmosphere for days. Like, again, Katie was like, she could not help but trying to paint the picture of what's happening because it's such a huge part of the book.
There's this one little thing that always sticks in my brain, and during the scene where they go to the Thistle Witch, the Thistle Witch is divining stuff with eggshells, which in and of itself is really cool. But there's this one scene as she's walking up to the Thistle Witch, she sees the little pieces of eggs
floating,
and some of them are cracked and she sees a little spider in one of the eggshells. An unwilling captain is what she calls it, and I'm just like scuttling around, and
it's fantastic. It really is. So
in essence, go read it.
Go read it. See how you like it. If you know any, like, baby goths who have yet to fully bloom, throw it at them. Like, it'll be a nice Christmas gift, I promise. You know,
stocking stuffer, cheap, $10 of $11.99.
You can get the whole series pretty cheap, super easy. You know, like, and we'd recommend it. But as far as, like, Gina, because we know Katie's answer, did you enjoy this book more now as an adult, or do you think that as a young you, it was the most?
So my question is, are we going to do the rest in the series?
Valiant is totally worth it.
I think we should do Valiant. I don't necessarily, just because I do want to do other, like, because again, this is a series of...
I'm not saying, like, right away. I'm just saying, like, are we...
No, we should definitely do Valiant.
I would say let's do Valiant
because my answer depends on that.
Because I really like Valiant, and I would say Valiant is more foundational for you than Tithe is.
I will actually say that I like this book a lot more now, specifically Tithe, a lot more now than I did as a kid, because, like, I think as a kid, like, I really liked the atmosphere, but I couldn't connect with any of the characters. Like, I didn't really understand what was going on. And I know that because, like, when I was listening to the audiobook this time, I'm like, oh, everything makes so much more sense now. And it's not because I'm older, it's because I've learned to understand people a little bit better. So like I understand why characters are doing what they were doing, whereas before I absolutely was not understanding anything.
And that's fascinating.
I was gonna say, you know what's one thing? I might enjoy Valiant more now. I haven't read Valiant in a while, whereas I've read Tithe a million times. I had a hard time reading Valiant when I was young because the scenes of her in her drug addiction and the scenes of her living on her own reminded me so much of my mother. It was hard.
So actually, I definitely think so I'll just say we're doing Valiant. Will, we're doing Valiant. Throw it on the schedule for next month.
Also, Will, I hate that you didn't fucking read this book. It's because
he wouldn't have liked it.
Oh my god!
He wouldn't have liked it.
I don't care. I want to force him.
It was funny because I was talking to my boyfriend and he was like, "Oh, you guys are doing a book?" I was like, "Yeah, it's just me, Gina, and Katie." And he was like, "Oh, Will's not doing it. He always does them." And I was like, he didn't want to read this book, and he was like, "Oh, come on, you had." And I was like, "No, you don't."
My favorite book ever, and he doesn't want to.
That's more of
favorite book ever, but
more of a reason for him not to
because
yeah,
you don't want him talking negative about
it.
Kiss your ass.
Don't. Yeah.
So, any last words, ladies, as we come up to 2 hours of
Absolutely
filming?
not. Let's end this.
Wait, Gina, before Katie just speaks for you, like you ain't got your own brain.
No, I'm just gonna want to reiterate that this is I had, Katie had to force herself to read Valiant to some degree. I had to force myself to read this one because I wanted to read the third one, and I kept seeing online that you can't read the third one without reading the first one.
You can't!
I wanted to just read Valiant and then Ironside, and I'm like, oh, there's another one? Why is there another one? What's the point of another one? That was kind of what I went into this as.
Gina, how sick would it have been if in the third book, the whole reason for Valiant was that they were both going to come together to solve the problem?
That's what I wanted. I read Valiant and I was like, I'm so ready to see these stories mesh. Oh.
Nope.
We just went back to the first.
Just a small bit towards the end. That's it.
Oh, okay, Black. That was a decision. Oh, Katie, is this episode sponsored by anyone? Do we have any sponsors?
I mean, our Patreon.
Yes,
you can go to our Patreon and give us money.
Yes. So you can support our creative endeavors.
Well, it is actually, that is 100% true. Honestly, pretty much it's for Will's ability to actually commit time for us to do this.
I can't begin to explain to you the magic he works. There are episodes where I was like, that's a mess. And then I see the final episode and I'm like, good job. Oh my god, we look so smart.
He does everything for the videos, so please, guys.
We show up. This is it. But also, when you're part of our Patreon, you get to join our Discord. Fun stuff happens on there. We've
actually a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of interaction. So
it's constant conversation all the time. You'd never be lonely. Just log on there and you can talk to people.
It's literally, we've had a couple of our patrons say that it's a really nice community. A lot of them are writers.
It is.
You're a writer, and they give
literally
writing
only
tips.
Constructive.
Yes, it's a really fantastic little community. I'm super happy.
Proud of them.
I'm proud of them, but also just I watched this happen and the joy they bring each other, and it brings me joy. So that's great. But we also have our monthly book club where you can nominate a book and then we choose 3 of them and then everybody gets to vote from that, and then we will read that book on the last Saturday of the month in a live stream, and then people can ask us questions and we interact, and it's really fun. We've done Jurassic Park and Black Sun. We also did Gideon the Ninth, but that video was not good. The audio was not great.
The video itself was amazing.
The audio was not good.
No.
Anyway, join our Patreon. We love you, our parasocial darlings. Bye.